Okay, I want to talk about last night's Dungeons and Dragons game just a little bit, because it was such an interesting and fun turning point. I know this isn't necessarily all y'all, bag, I suppose, but you might enjoy the story aspect of it too. So this world that I've created, it's pretty much a standard fantasy role playing world, right? Of swords and sorcery. It's a medieval town with a castle. There's a lord of the land who's very full of himself that gives out quests. And then part of the two kind of major elements that have happened. One is that they've discovered the ruins of an ancient temple of a fallen god of death, uh, buried underneath the city, where what they've learned is that the one of the gods of light built a temple on top of it to try to like contain it, so to speak, long ago. And everybody's kind of forgotten about this ancient structure, but there are powers at play that want to get at some of the stuff in there that is still pretty powerful. And when they explored this a couple sessions ago, the first part is that they found a vampire in there, uh, a very powerful one that claimed that he can't feel his master anymore, but he's still bound to this area. But if you free me, I would be most appreciative. And they're like, "Do you promise not to do anything bad?" And he's like, "Yes, I promise. I absolutely promise to not do anything bad, not ever." Because that's sometimes how these players are. Anybody in a cage needs to be freed. There's one player I know that's like, some people are in prison for a pretty good reason. This guy's a vampire stuck in his temple of death. Maybe a good place to keep him, but that does not occur to them. But these players, what had happened the last session is they encountered this cleric of death that they, of course, just opened fire on. They did not actually ask any interesting questions of this guy. So they kill him, and he releases two undead dragons on them. Uh, and it's wild how powerful and very skilled these players are, because I have to throw really hard enemies at them and they deal with them like no problem. So anyway, I put two of these on the board, and the vampire who helped them got wiped out by their crazy weapons, and it started to turn on them. But they finished one of them off, and so I cinematically had the other one escape at the end of the mission. It broke its way out of its cavern, which is underneath the city. So now it's over the city and it's blowing things up, and it's super pissed because its mate just got destroyed. Right. And that's how I ended the last session. One of the other elements in this game is a group, an organization called Overmage Security, and they are basically some sort of like cross between like the Venetian Republic and like Barnum and Bailey's circus, right? They're these technomancers. They're these wandering snake oil salesmen that come and set up shop, and they've got all these wondrous things for sale that all are of dubious quality and sometimes somewhat harmful, right? And one of the players, it's been a real blast with her. She's been a good sport about it too, because there's a concept in the game called cursed items. And cursed items, what they do is they usually have some sort of benefit, but they also make your character do things that you don't want them necessarily to do, right? So a cursed sword may make you go blood crazy. Oh, you started swinging this weapon and now you don't know friend from foe, that kind of thing. Um, and players don't want that, right? They want the benefit, they don't want the curse. But when you have to be very careful with cursed items as a dungeon master, because you're taking away some of the agency of the player, and they want to be able to control their character, right? But it can add for a lot of fun, and she's been a very good sport about this. So the first of these cursed items that I gave her was a while back. It's actually what kind of started this whole thing. It really snowballed. Um, was I came up with a Game Boy essentially, but it's magical. They don't know how it works or whatever. But this thing is cursed, and what it is that whoever got the high score last is free of the item and can give it away. But whoever picks it up and starts engaging with it, they have to break. They have, if they fail their what's called a wisdom saving throw. If they fail this roll, then they have to play it until they beat the high score by rolling higher than the previous person who played it did. And so the Lord of the Land was the first one to play this, so he could get rid of it at any time. He threw it to one of the characters who got a decent roll and managed to break free of it, broke his high score. And so she's like, "Well, that was interesting." And another player who they didn't realize the danger, she's like, "Well, I want to try it." And I'm like, well, now you have to beat her score. And so she couldn't do it. She kept failing these rolls. And throughout that whole adventure, she was almost incapacitated because, like, no, you're playing the video game. I'm sorry, you're playing Tetris or whatever. Doot, 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 right? And so she's a little frustrated by that. Finally breaks it though, and she's like, "I'm putting that bad boy in a in a bag and nobody touch it." Right? So they realize that this is not a good thing to have, but they weaponize it. This I did not expect. So the next thing you know is there's a goblin priest that they're going to deal with, and she gives it to him, and so he fails his throne and starts playing this game, and he can't beat the roll, so they just slaughter him. But they forget to grab this thing off the battlefield, and so I had one of their allies, their NPC allies, the leader of this orc tribe, pick it up himself, and it added to some story thing because he basically withered away because he couldn't beat her crazy high roll on beating this thing. He couldn't beat her high score, is what it meant, and so that created some drama in the game too. But they had to figure something out with that. But ever since then, I basically made her. She got the option, and she did sign a contract with these guys that she's a beta tester, a field tester for these items. And what they'll do is, like, you sign a contract, you take this item and tell us how it works, and we'll give you a bunch of money, right? And you're compelled by contract to do it. And the object always has some sort of negative effect. And the one that was the funniest was she had this gun that did a lot of damage. But the problem is, if she'd fail her roll, is that she would be compelled to wander up to whatever enemy she was fighting, because if far away does good damage, close up must do better, right? That's the thought process that enters your head with this particular item. And I give her advantage. Advantage means you get to roll two 20-sided dice and pick the highest number. So she has a pretty good chance of breaking these rolls. She fails them constantly, so badly too. She's rolling ones and twos and threes all the time on these checks. Sometimes she makes it, so I'm like, okay, you're not compelled to do anything particular, but probably 80% of the time she fails these rolls. It's really fun for me. Not for her, but she's a good sport about it, because it's like, oh, okay, you're stunned for a round because you're losing your sense of self because this thing is making you see the world like the Matrix or something, and then she goes and reports and gets a bag of money, right? They take the item back. But she has advantage. That's the thing, is that she has I gave her an unnatural resilience to the mind control effects of these items, and she just keeps failing them. But because of her association with these guys, they're great plot devices. They're wonderful. So anyway, this adventure, what I did was, the reason why I had the dragon escape is I wanted this idea of an airship battle. And this organization, they come in and they have basically this flying ship, like a straight up like a boat with a sails and everything, but it's got magical jets on the side. It's very whimsical, comes in and parks over the castle, and then they'll be doing trade with the castle or whatever, right? So one of these is out in the sky when this dragon comes out, and it sees it, and it's like, oh, that's an enemy, I gotta destroy it. So it attacks the ship, and the ship was unprepared, and the ship gets knocked down. So when the players start the session at the beginning of the game, it's, there are a couple of things that I was putting down, and this is the trick of dungeon mastering, is that there are certain story elements you want them to do, very, but you don't want to tell them to do it, right? You want them to come to the conclusion. So you have to lay these clues out, and sometimes it's pretty heavy-handed. These are clerics of light, and they're disagreeing that they're going to be able to do anything about this dragon. It's just going to kill them. They're freaking out. They're leaderless and at a loss, right? And it only takes one player to say, yeah, we should probably encourage them to help us, right? Okay, what are you saying? Let make a roll, right? That's what I wanted to do, because I wanted them to say, okay, we got these guys figured out, and they're going to join us and help, right? But they weren't picking that up right away, And the other part is, they wanted to see this dragon. They wanted to see if they could attack it from the ground, but I made it. It's too far. It's dive bombing the city. It's out of range of all your attacks, cinematically. Okay, this is part of the cinematic aspect. This dragon is not something you're going to attack right now. It's blown parts of the city up, though, so you feel a sense of urgency, although you have some time to get your breath and figure things out, right? Well, one of the things that was in this Temple of Death that they had left behind was an ancient evil sword that's in some sort of containment field. And the way I describe this place is kind of like a nuclear reactor where it's got a whole bunch of manuals on the side. It's operating procedures or whatever. And so I've got the book. What does it say? And it's like, rule number one, don't touch it. Don't think you're the chosen one. Everyone thinks they're the chosen one. And then they touch this thing and then they die. Don't do it. Right? It's like rule number one. But they get it in their heads that this vampire that they want to free might be able to wield this weapon. One of them does. And so he got cooked, but because he's a vampire, he's still alive as a thing of mist living in this temple. And so one of the players who got bit by this guy is playing in character and is saying, well, I'm going to go try to help him, and maybe give him his, he's a champion or whatever. Maybe he needs this weapon, right? So he's down for that, the vampire. But we enter into a particular situation called interparty conflict, right? So the party in general, they decide like, okay, well, we know this vampire is around. Chances are pretty good that he can wield this thing. Do we want to give the vampire a weapon of crazy death that is protected in this crazy temple? Probably not. This is what they got. It's probably not a great idea. But one player is like, no, I think that's a great idea because I am in love with this vampire. He has bit me. They don't know that he's bitter, but she's like, I want to make that happen for him. And this, a couple weeks ago, we had a situation where we did have a player that just kind of went off the rails. It was basically killing guards and stuff. And this is the challenge. You can do anything in these worlds, just like you can in real life. I could, if I wanted to, grab a weapon, go down to the 7-Eleven and mug that dude and rob him blind if I wanted to. It's not going to go well for me, I promise. It's that scenario is not a good scenario for me to live out. And just like in real life, you as a dungeon master, you want to set up a framework that says it's a bad idea for you to do this, right? And sometimes a player will be like, I want to do it anyway. Like whenever the dungeon master warns you a couple of times about what you're about to do, he is saying, you're not going to like the consequences of this. Your character probably would think the better of it because most people wouldn't rob a 7-Eleven because it's not worth the whatever measly reward you might get out of it compared to the dire straits you would find yourself in, right? That's just common wisdom. If it's not, your philosophical Aristotelian, morality that says I do because I'm ethical, not rob the 7-Eleven, at least the fear of the law will keep you from doing that. You know what I mean? But when there are players sometimes feel like there are no consequences, and that doesn't really mix well when there are other players that do, that feel invested in this world, that don't want to have trouble. And in that particular case, a couple weeks ago, this player killed a guard. They basically started committing murder. And I don't want to be unrealistic about that, but that's also not the vibe of the adventure that I want, right? Now, he had a reason for it. His character is just snaps, for lack of a better word. But it created a situation for all the rest of the players that they really didn't want to deal with. They were now on the run, and they were failing certain roles, and all, other things were just kind of going sideways. And the way I had to Deus Ex it was he managed to part of the thing that they didn't want him to do either, but they found this special holy object that he got his hands on and gave it to this demonic character that they've encountered before, this powerful demon. And so what I did there was like, she'll take it, no problem. Absolutely. I love this. Your mortal is giving me this special magical item willingly for free. Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to throw in a little extra for you. I'm going to make it so that trouble that you experienced trying to get this will go away. So through Deus Ex, I had her basically Men in Black everybody that was involved, so they all forgot the last 30 minutes or whatever, and the guy that got killed got resurrected, and he's in a state, But that is how I was able to resolve that through storytelling in a way that's like, okay, we reset things back. Don't do that, guys. You know what I mean? Is kind of how it goes, because I don't want you to be running an adventure where you're on the run for the law. That's not fun. It's not the Bonnie and Clyde adventure is not what we were after. We're here to save the world or whatever, right? That's what most players are there to do. But anyway, so this is fresh in the mind of one of the players, that sometimes players act against the interests of the party. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though, because it makes for drama, right? As long as it's in character and it helps fuel the game, I encourage it, right? And in this case, we had the one character who's been bitten by the vampire against the rest of the party members who do not want this vampire to get this weapon, and they come into conflict. The vampire approaches the weapon. They're like, we got to kill the vampire. She's like, no, I want the vampire to get the weapon. They get into a little scuffle over it, but the vampire ends up getting defeated, right? So that player is kind of let down. Their plan didn't work out. But the other player is a little upset, like this person's working against interests. And I had to kind of talk her off the ledge on that one a little bit. Like, it's true. Sometimes players do things that you don't want to do, but have a little faith in me as the storyteller that I can mitigate that, right? It may not be something that your character wants to have happen, but it's going to make for an interesting story. I'm going to do that, right? And give you something to fight, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. You don't want things to go right. Nobody is interested in a story where the main character just always succeeds at everything, right? You want to have some sort of challenge, personal challenge, some person that's more powerful than you, something that you can't defeat easily, right? And so having a situation where one of the party members is trying to do this bad thing, and if the bad thing happens, now you've got a consequence. But hey, it's a new problem to deal with, and that's fun, right? But anyway, that does not happen. But in the meantime, I'm like, yeah, you keep hearing the sounds of explosions outside the city. There's a hole in the ceiling, and you can hear people screaming and lots of explosions. That dragon is still out there, So they're like, all right, we're not going to touch the weapon. We killed the vampire again. So we're going to go back up here to deal with these clerics. Clerics freaking out again. Finally, somebody gets the wise idea. Let's talk to them and try to encourage them. Good. You encourage them. Now they're going to help you. Now what do you want to do? And of course, I was very heavy handed too. It's like, there was an airship out there. Oh boy, that cool airship that the dragon got upset about and blew it up, but it's not destroyed. It's laying, listing, on the ground in the courtyard of the castle, you know, wow, what a cool thing. Finally one of the players is like, we should go check out that ship. Yeah, we should go check out. I even tell the one character who's all crazed about these items, the beta tester for this organization, is like, oh, you know what? I do want to check out the ship. I'm like, yes, okay, that's what I want, because you got to let them come to the conclusion, but you got to lay it out there, like, there is a ship on the ground that the dragon doesn't like, and one of you really likes that ship. Finally somebody's like, we should go check out the ship. Yeah, okay, great. You go out and look at the ship, because I had a whole mechanic figured out. And this is a whole custom thing that I had happen. I'm like, okay, how many players do I have? That was the big one. I don't know how many players I've got. I got to figure out a role for everybody. So of course I know who the pilot is. It's going to be the person who's the beta tester. And she fails these roles so often. It's so great. I love it. I love how often she fails these roles. So she takes over this ship. Now she is the ship. She is the Venture. And one of her legs doesn't work and her belly hurts for some reason. This is how she perceives it. Her, that meat husk that's in that chair, that's just another thing to take care of. It's just cargo, right? Like, that's what happens to her because she failed this role. But that's the thing, is that, okay, you failed the role, and this is a wild thing that's happening to your character, but I haven't broken your character. Nothing terrible truly has happened. You're just having this experience. So I had it set up so you had to have someone go in the engine room because the engine is messed up, and you're going to have to switch out the fuel containment with the spare that's in there. And then you have to have two gunners, and the gunners can operate one little gun independently, or they can work together to fire the wave motion cannon, the big gun in this ship. You had to have a spotter up in the mast, so you had to have someone make perception checks to look for the dragon and say, okay, the dragon's over here, and to tell you, to communicate to everyone, this is the dragon, I see the dragon. And then the navigator, because the ship is messed up, the pilot is not even if they make the rolls. I gave her a set of things that she could do as the operator of the ship, but there was another person that's responsible for, like, okay, you're steering too hard to the left, you need to correct, right, because the ship's busted and she's not aware, right? Giving them all some participatory involvement in this that isn't combat. Is you make a roll, this is the penalty of what happens if you fail the roll. If you make the roll, this is what happens, you succeed, right? And give this whole situation where they align up and fly up into the sky and do this sky combat with this dragon. And it was fun. It was super fun. And at the end of it, they destroy this dragon. Once again, this character fails her wisdom roll. And what I wanted is, I want this ship out of here. I don't want them to have the ship. I don't want them running around the town with this ship now. And so the ship kind of has a mind of its own now because you've plugged into it, and the ship wants to go home. It does not like being in the atmosphere in the material plane. This place sucks. It wants to be back in the astral sea in space where it belongs. She fails the roll. You're firing up the warp engines now. But from a storytelling perspective, I have to give everyone an option here. I have to say, okay, you hear the engines firing up and you know wherever this thing is going, it's not going to be here anymore. You have that instinct. I'm not going to make you try to figure that out. You hear the engines, right? You got to figure out a way to get off the ship if you want to get off of it. And you can grab your friend who is in a trance, basically, who's piloting this ship. You can grab her body and pull you with her, right? And I explain it to her that she's getting summoned back to the castle by the person who gave her the ability to fly this plane. She was promoted as a field technician, is what it is now, as this beta tester for this organization. But do you all want to go with the ship to the astral sea, or do you want to stay where you are? And they all opted to go with the ship, minus one player, but he swaps out with different characters all the time. I'm not worried about him. He intentionally was like, nope, this guy's going to stay in this place. Okay, that's fine. Come back with a different character in the next adventure. And so they do. I had not planned this at all. I wanted to get rid of the ship. I did not want them necessarily to go with it, but they all elected to go with it. So I have to wing that. That's the fun part of the storytelling, though. You have to improvise. Like, okay, you're now on the astral sea. You are, and the pilot of the ship feels, I can breathe, I can fly again. This is where I belong, right? And everybody else is having a good time. Like, okay, well, you know where a port is. You're hurt, so you want to go. You know, you perceive yourself as being really hurt from this battle with this dragon, so you want to go to port, and you know where one is. So you head home. You had to. It's not even really home. It's just it's like a pit stop. It's like a gas station for you. So you go to the gas station. The gas station. What is it called? What does it look like? What is it going on? Okay. It's called Cornwall. Haversham is a town or county or something in England, going with the same vibe. Cornwall is a not terribly well known place to Americans, but I know what it is, and it's British enough. It's called Cornwall, this place. Okay, who's in charge? Okay, well, the harbor master comes out. He looks like a little robot, like a robot. And I realized later, somebody put it together. It's not Wizard of Oz. I think it might be the Wiz, or maybe the second one in the movies that came out in the 90s or whatever, with the little robot. The Tin Man, I think, is who it is. It looks like a little pot-bellied dude with a mustache or whatever. This is who I envisioned as the harbor master that came out of this place. What's your name? Totter. Because that's what he does. He totters out, right? Totter's his name. And what is the story here? They're like asking him all sorts of things, and he's, a representative of the company. He's like, oh, the ship has been through all sorts of stuff. Asks her questions, like, are you going to let him find out what he needs to know? Because that's another one, is that they invade your mind to get details about what happened. And I've let them know that they're not probing your deepest thoughts. They want a debriefing. They want a report on how this thing worked. They don't care about your personal history. Everybody's got a personal history. That's boring. How did the gun work? Is basically how they think, right? But she lets them do this, and they're like, oh, you know what? You've been really helpful. You not only just defeated that dragon, you help us secure our property, and you've been working on our behalf as a freelancer. This is great for us. We really acknowledge that. So he writes out a thing like, here's your accommodations. And I let him know, like, okay, you basically have been given a penthouse suite in the town, and all the accommodations you want, you're being set up here. Uh, why not? Right? What's the city look like? Well, it's like an asteroid with a lot of skyscrapers on top. It's like it's like a head with spiky hair is what it kind of looks like. Just a lot of skyscrapers, and then these little ports where ships come and go. And this is all come up with in a 5-minute interlude. What's the mayor? Who's in charge? The mayor. What's the mayor's name? Okay, Mayor Silverstein. Uh-oh. did I say, of course it's Mayor Silverstein. Like, I don't know, man. I'll come up with something else, I don't know. But that's the thing. It's like you have to wing it. You have to come up with this stuff, and boy, it's cemented. These players like writing it down. It is now carved in stone. The mayor of this place is Silverstein. The harbor master is named Totter, and he's like a little robot dude that kind of looks like Wizard of Oz. What's the building that the Emerald Tower? Oh God, it's so much like Wizard of Oz. Oh God, damn it, you know. That is where my mind went. I don't know why, but it's called the Emerald Tower, and but it's not. I mean, there's a green spire at the top. Okay, it's not completely emerald. All right, like I'm doing my best here. Like that's how you roll with this stuff. But it's you're painting on the fly. You did something I didn't expect completely. I know roughly what I want to do with these guys. I have some ideas, but now you're making me flesh it out, and that's where things get tricky. Is consistency in your world, because these guys will be like, 8 sessions ago you said that this guy was a lieutenant and now you're saying he's a sergeant. Oh God, okay, yeah, he's a lieutenant. Okay, yeah, all right, he's a little higher than I thought he was. All right, whatever. you know or no, you know what, I'm taking that back. That's another retconning. No, I'm taking it back. He was never a lieutenant, he was a sergeant. Okay, just deal with it. Because I'm trying to make a story here that works. Just go with it. But they're very merciful on me when it comes to that stuff. They let me get away with a lot as a dungeon master, because they know what I'm trying to do. They know I'm trying to provide a fun story. They know I'm not trying to kill them. Last night was the first time I have killed a player outright. Now, I did not intend it, but the dragon came up and attacked the ship with their breath weapon, and it did so much damage that it insta-killed one of the characters. But I'm always thinking, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to kill a character outright. Resurrection is a possibility in this game. Conan has it happen to him. He dies on the cross on a tree in Conan the Barbarian, and a wizard resurrects him. He's dead for 3 days and all this very Jesus-like thing. So there is a mechanic in fantasy gaming to have resurrection happen, but it's tough when it happens kind of out of band, when a player goes down, a character goes down, because now what do you do? There was no other clerics. In fact, the one player that has Revivify wasn't playing tonight. Last night. So they didn't have the ability to resurrect this person. But this character has actually made friends, not with one, but two unholy creatures that have certain capacities for life beyond death. And I'm like, what do you want to do? You feel a sensation that you could come back to life because of your association with that vampire. And she was like, oh, but she thought I was going in the other direction with the other unholy being that she's been dealing with. And I'm like, yeah, that's another option. Let me know what you want to do. But I'm typing this out because I don't want the other players to know what's going on with her. This is part of the secret backstory stuff. Vampire or Elvira or nothing. What do you want to do? But you got to pick. Vampire. Okay. So the players all of a sudden realize, they're like, we got to save Rose's character. I'm like, Rose is fine. She's alive. She's got 1 hit point. What? I thought she was dead. Seemed that way. Like, this has something to do with Charles the vampire, doesn't it? I don't know. They're not stupid, but they understand that that's part of it, right? Is that I will roll with it and make this a fun story for you anyway. Her coming back, her dying was unexpected, but I have a plan for that. Okay, we got 2 options for you. And that adds to the drama, right? She's going to be working against the party a little bit. That could come into conflict, however they want to play it out, but that's life. You make alliances and make commitments and all that other stuff, and go along with the flow. So now they've got a vampire spawn in their midst. They're in the Astral Sea. They've got a character who's about to get promoted with a letter of marque from these guys, basically saying that you can be a freelance mercenary for us, and here's a contract. Don't ever work against us. You don't have to work for us, but we have lots of stuff for you to do, just like the Adventurers Guild. If you help us out, we'll give you a pretty penny, and we're always interested in someone who's going to test these weapons and stuff for us. And guess what? You save the ship, you can have the ship. We'll fix it for you. Free of charge this time. Next time you want to fly, you got to buy. You got to pay for your repairs. Oh, there's a money making scheme to be done here for sure. But that's a reward for her going through all this stuff of enduring all those bad roles. God, Nora has just rolled so terribly on this character for these roles, but it makes it so fun. And the one time she's like, she's like, I'm making a dive bomb to the cleric's place because we got to resurrect our friend. And I'm like, but your friend's alive. She's like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, when I was diving in there because they wanted to be lower to the ground. They wanted to be able to escape. And I was like, oh, okay, well, roll your wisdom check to see if you. I made it. And I'm like, well, you're aware that your friend is alive, so you didn't do that. The one time she succeeds, it works against what she wants. It's great. It's so much fun. I'm having such a good time with it. But now what it means is because she's been such game, she's gonna get an airship. She's gonna get this reward out of the deal because of the way she's played this character. And who knows where they're gonna take it? They may not return to Haversham at all. I gotta plan for that. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do because everything is pinned on this little medieval town, and now they're in space. And it's funny because one of the players, she's like, "Oh, my other character, she always wanted to go to space. That was her thing. She had a uh, it's called the wild magic table. So if you have a particular type of sorcerer and things go wrong, you roll on this table, and one of these negative effects happen to you. One of them is you appear in space for just a minute, so you have to protect yourself. You have to make yourself able to breathe or whatever, because astral sea is not quite like space. But then she had this experience of seeing space, and she's always wanted to go back. And she's like, "Oh man, I should have had that character, but wasn't with her." But anyway, so now they're in space. Pirates in space. That's where they are now. Not what I expected at all. I don't know how I'm going to loop it back, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But anyway, that is the story of Dungeons and Dragons. The dice tell the story, is one of the things that they say. And this character, she has a pretty high resilience. I gave her a pretty high resilience because I wanted to encourage her to use these things, because even though they have negative consequences, they're fun and they add for plot device. They're literally plot devices. But she fails these rolls all the time. And so she has to do silly stuff, but she's such game for it. And that's tough because I'm taking her character's agency away with these items. And that's the thing you have to worry about with curses as a dungeon master, is the player feeling like, oh, man, I'm just getting drug around by the nose. I'm not able to do whatever I want to do. I don't want to take away too much. I just want to say, oh well, you failed this roll. Now you have to do this thing. This is your next action you have to take. But you can still have your free will back next turn or whatever, right? You can't take it away too much. And also too, when you make the check, I want you to, your character feels this way. You really want to go check that ship out. That ship is really neat, right? Because it's part of the curse, I guess, but it gives her a reason to do something. And her character's kind of a quirky tinker troublemaker anyway. So she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to get in, I'm going to go get in that ship. I want to see what's in it. You can fly this ship. Oh, I connected to the ship. Fail the wisdom save. You are the ship now. Arastia is no more in your mind. You are the ship Venture, and you want to fly in the astral sea. It's really fun. It's really, really fun. And how this game has gone. And you don't, even the dungeon master doesn't know. That's the fun part. You're the storyteller. Everybody's looking to you to come up with the story, but you have no idea what's going to happen. You put rails out there, and the players will do everything they can to bust out of the rails. And you have to come up with as much improv as creating a whole new city with two new players in the course of a few minutes, just because they decided to make one choice over the other, because you had an idea in mind on how you kept them from doing something else. I did not want them to be pirates around Haversham flying around in that airship. Pirates on the Astral Sea? Maybe that's where this goes. I don't know. Anyway, that's it.